Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
Morning, Bix Weir, road-to-road.com. With your morning Hornets, your sip of chaga coffee. All right, keeping an eye on silver. Yes, we are very close to it ending. There are great signs that the silver manipulation, the official silver manipulation that's gone on for 170 years, is nearing an end. I'm at that point where I always come to this idea, hey, what if I just found out about silver and invested everything I had? Didn't have to go through the 20 years of bullshit that I've had to go through. What if I just found out about silver? I all of a sudden instantly knew everything about silver, was new to silver. What would I do? I would go out and load up every truck I could find with silver. Physical silver in your own possession only. Mining stocks will not last, will not survive. Every country is going to put their hands around their assets and say, oh my God, the banks have completely destroyed the entire system. What do we have? Especially Mexico, that's exported 33% of the silver in history. Of the 60 billion ounces that have been dug up out of the ground, over 30% came from Mexico. Should be the richest country in the world. If silver was freely traded, it would be at least 7-1 with gold. Probably a lot better than that for various reasons. The obvious reason is 60% of all the silver that's dug up out of the ground is disappeared into the industrial side. They'll never come back. It's used in little tiny bits. Even solar panels, it is not economical to pull an ounce out of a solar panel. Or electric cars, who nobody really knows how much silver is used in an electric car. They're saying 1 to 2 ounces. I'm hearing it's probably 30 to 40 ounces. But nobody is really talking about that information. And clearly there's no experts in it because it's new. So yes, I wish I had never heard of silver until today, and I knew everything about silver because I would tell everybody, hey, have you looked at this investment? Have you analyzed this investment? Do you know what the supply-demand dynamics are? You know why Warren Buffett bought over 100 million ounces, probably 130 million ounces in the late 90s? It's because there was a supply-demand deficit, meaning the industry is using up more than is coming out of the ground. The consumption and is estimated of investable silver. There's 2 to 3 billion ounces left, 6 billion ounces if you can't have everybody melt down their fillings. And of course, all the silver's still there. 60 billion ounces on the planet, but the vast majority of that is lost in landfills with your old flat screen TV, your old iPhone, your old Mac. What was it? Apple II computer. Everything has a little silver in it because it's the best conductor of electricity. And the thermodynamic properties. You can go round and round. What you care about, and what a lot of people care about, is the price of silver. If you're an investor, or if you're an industrial purchaser, you're caring about the price of silver too, because you don't want it to go up. You don't want the price of these large flat screen TVs that are just coming from China and just dove in price. You can get one for like a couple $100, a large one for $400 or $500. Do you really want that price to triple or quadruple because the price of silver went up to $1,000 an ounce, or $2,000 an ounce, or wherever it should be? No, you want that price to stay low. You're all happy with the CFTC allowing the price suppression of of silver and gold to an extent, but there's so much gold out there that they don't tell you about. It's kind of the opposite situation with gold and silver and market manipulation. Gold, the banks own most of the gold. Of course they want it to go up. Silver's a bank killer. They have this massive short position that, by the way, something really cool happened. Let me take you right there right now. Silver's not allowed to do anything today, so don't worry about it. But this is the Commitment of Traders report. Now, if you've been in silver long enough, you probably know what this is. If you haven't, this is where on the COMEX is where the price of silver is determined. It's a U.S. Derivative market of silver, futures and options. And then they have a little delivery component of real physical silver, but they don't really allow you to do that. And 99% of the trades that happen on the COMEX are just banks trading back and forth with each other to suppress the price. A company called Virtu Financial kind of orchestrates the whole thing behind the scenes. They're a high-frequency trading company, market maker in not only the COMEX but the SLV. They're an authorized participant in the SLV, meaning they could take physical silver out. They're literally a computer high-frequency trading company. What are they doing as an authorized participant of SLV? That is the question. Anyway, that company is run by a guy named Vinny Viola, who plays the game. Anyway, but this commitment of traders report, I used to follow it. It gets confusing. I used to know what every single one of those little numbers meant, and it's the change in those numbers that is the most important part. But over time, I decided to leave it to the expert. Mr. Ted Butler is the man. If you don't know who Ted is, go to butlerresearch.com. He's got a great newsletter, comes out twice a week. But he is the expert on, he can look at something like this and tell you by the change each report, and they come out on Friday, but the cutoff is Tuesday, which is important because a lot of the big rig jobs, you'll see the rig going all up or down all the way till Tuesday, and then it reverses on Wednesday because that's what they have to report to the CFTC. A lot of this is about hiding the manipulation from the CFTC, but it's right here in the data. There are 4 shorts that control the vast majority of silver pricing on the COMEX. They are massively short, but things have changed. Usually in the rise in the price of silver, these 4 shorts will short lay more shorts on the rise, and then they buy on the crashes, which you would think, hey, wait a minute, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You short if you think it's too high, and you buy when you think it's too low. That is true, although the concentration is the most important thing. Ted will tell you over and over again. Yeah, you're right. They're doing it the correct way, but because they're so highly concentrated, because they have so much power in the actual price, their purchase would literally destroy the price of silver if they all worked collectively like they always have. For decades, they work collectively. And these are like JP Morgan, HSBC, Bank of America's in there now. They switch who the 4 is. But something really interesting is happening right now, and Ted has pointed this out. Of the 4 big shorts in silver, 3 of them are the commercial traders. It's usually 4 of them. Now there's a, what's it called? Managed money trader who is going on the short side. I think it's BlackRock or someone big like BlackRock. Most likely BlackRock, because they don't have to report the same way that the banks do. And this is supposedly a massive short position put on by a managed money trader. So we will see what goes on. But what Ted was saying in the last ride up in silver of $6 price gain since March, before they crashed it last week, the big 4, the big 3 now, the commercial riggers, did not short into the rise much at all. Meaning they are not playing that game. They know something's about to happen in silver. And they are covering their tracks. Pretty soon, all 3 of the big 4, all 3 will be long. And at that point, who's going to sell silver, right? Who's going to short silver? Is BlackRock going to short against the entire market? It's a recipe for disaster. And then can BlackRock, if it is BlackRock, I don't know, the managed money trader, can they ever cover their short? Because if the big commercial players, the banks, the criminals, aren't playing the game anymore, who are they going to purchase their longs from to cover their short? Because every time a short is put on, there has to be a long put on. And vice versa. Every time there's a long put on, there has to be a short put on. Because these are contracts traded back and forth. They're gambling. Unfortunately, the volume, over like 500 million ounces every day trade on the COMEX, and it's just computer programs trading back and forth. Mindless, controlled by Vinny Viola of Virtu Financial. So Ted thinks this is a change. Why things are different? He said, this has never happened. This is, well, maybe once during the 2011 rise to $50, that the criminal colluding massive short position by the commercials, they are not playing the same game this time. They are not shorting into the rise, which means the last crash was probably, and Ted says probably at about 8,000 short contracts were added by this fourth trader. So basically, this managed money trader who became all of a sudden in the top four had to short massively. And they're pretty much, probably by now, after the last slam, they're probably the only short left. Whoever it is has a death wish. Because how can they close out that short? They have to buy futures contracts to close out the short. And don't forget, what's the maximum amount a silver short can lose? If you go long, you can lose 100% of your investment. If you go short, you can lose 100% of your investment, times it by 10,000, 100,000, a million, infinity, until you close out that short. As the GameStop people found out, the people who were short in GameStop, all the smart hedge funds, the regulators literally changed all the rules just to save the bad guys. So if Ted is correct, which he has been, because he doesn't believe in, it's not like he doesn't believe in conspiracies. He says you can't prove it in a court of law. This, with the Commitment of Traders report, you can prove it in a court of law, and it should be proven in a court of law. But the CFTC is controlled by the riggers, and I'll show you how that happens. Anyway, definitely a great time for silver. I wish I woke up today and I just learned about silver. I knew everything about it. I'd say, holy shit, this is a massive change compared to the last 50 years. So check out Ted's, he's got a newsletter. He also put some free stuff up. Go to butlerresearch.com. Check that out. Now, outside of the COMEX, there's a different market going on, which is OTC market, over-the-counter market. It's like the hidden derivatives that you're not allowed to know about, see, and all that. This is the chart for precious metals. And as you can tell, in 2022, something changed drastically. Now, I was looking for something in January 2022 because I saw there was a huge problem in Bank of America. Bank of America, over the past 2 years before that, had been building up this massive derivative position in silver. And before what they did is they added all the gold derivative contracts in with the silver to mask what was really happening. What was really happening is that as of the end of 2021, the silver derivatives that Bank of America put on, silver shorts, would have to start being covered. And you would have seen these little lines here at the bottom, you would have seen that go down massively, and the Bank of America derivative position decline massively, because these were all 1-year leases of silver, physical silver, that they sold. What happened, it came from JP Morgan, who already got busted for rigging the silver market for 10 years. The new procedure, and we talked about this with Jenny Moonstone on Private Road years ago. They have a new game in the silver market, and this is what it was. JP Morgan leases the physical silver that they stole from the markets to Bank of America, who has a buyer at the back end. I think it's either Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, or the U.S. Mint. That's my take. Probably a combination of all of them. But it wasn't like just spread out in the market. No, it wasn't. It was specific. It was to keep the price control in place until the whole system's ready to fall. And when the whole system falls, the CFTC won't get the blame. The CME group, the COMEX, won't get the blame. Oh, it was a global collapse. It wasn't us. Bullshit. It was you. Anyway, you can see the massive drop, but that includes gold, which is really interesting. I don't think much of the gold is changing. As you can tell here, see these blue lines right here? Going down a little bit. The blue represents precious metals 1 to 5 years. If you look before, where these are mainly just silver, there's hardly any blue at all. Silver is a short-term manipulation. Nobody wants to keep a short on silver more than a year. That would be insane because it's such a volatile market. And, oh, by the way, it's massively price suppressed. So when gold got added, all this is gold, and it really didn't go down much. The 5-year precious metal in gold held by the banks didn't really go down much. This is the OTC market. But look at the overall, it went down massively. And this is the delivery of silver, or the closing out of the OTC silver positions. JP Morgan, at the end of the year, they paid the $920 billion fine for rigging the silver and gold markets. They had to book the $920 billion fine, but they booked a $1 billion gain that very year, which was 10, 15 times what they book in their precious metals, even more than that, in their precious metals trading. So it was a huge outlier, $1 billion gain. And the only way they could have done that, if they were really leasing the silver, was to have a fixed back end. Because if you have an operating lease, that's fine. All that silver comes back to JP Morgan. If you have a fixed back end, as in somebody buys it on the back end, you have to book that gain immediately. And that's what they did. So, I mean, I don't know if it's all the silver that JP Morgan had, but Bank of America clearly added over 1 billion ounces of silver derivative positions to their book. I know it's all confusing. And by the way, the reason these charts went wonky right here, and who is trying to hide it, it's this guy, Greg Coleman, of the Office of Comptroller of Currencies, the U.S. government. But where did he work before he went to the OCC? He's the number 2 guy at the OCC, obviously JP Morgan. So Jamie Dimon sent another one of his goons out to rig silver prices, and they hide everything. Now, where's the CFTC in this? They're doing things. They announced on Friday, CFTC orders HSBC to pay $45 million penalty for manipulative and deceptive practices in connection with swaps. Now, this goes back from 2012 to 2020. The regulators are horrible at real-time regulation, the worst. And then they'll come in 10 years later when it doesn't even matter and say, oh, you made a mistake, you owe us money. There's manipulation going on right now. 10 years from now, the CFTC will say, oh my God, you manipulated the market in 2023. You owe us $50 million or whatever it is. Right now, shit is happening that can be proven easily with the commitment of Trevor. It's all right here. Ted Butler has proven it to them. Ted Butler has done their job for them, but they refuse to do anything about it. So yes, they just busted again, HSBC. And interestingly, they busted HSBC for poor record keeping. This is, the traders colluding with each other back and forth. And that's $30 million for HSBC and $15 million for Bank of Nova Scotia. That's supposed to be out of the metals market, but no, they're still in there. Scotiabank. Previously known as Scotiabank, now it's known as Bank of Nova Scotia. These rats just won't go away. But I find it interesting now that they're doing this communications issue. They use WhatsApp, and they're not recording it. That's how they were getting around the CFTC, finding out what they're really doing, that they're colluding together. I find it interesting because they did the same thing to JP Morgan back in December of 2021. CFTC orders JP Morgan to pay $75 million fine for widespread use of employees of unapproved communications methods related to record keeping and supervision failures. The reason this was a big deal, a massive deal, is because they were on a deferred prosecution agreement from the Department of Justice about the market rigging, meaning that they're not allowed to get busted for another thing, or they could extend the deferred prosecution. Right now, JP Morgan has handcuffs on until September of 2023, unless they go astray and do something crooked. And voila, they did. Just a year after they paid the big fine, they did. Where is it? Right here, a year after. So they busted JP Morgan on September 29th, 2020. I think it was signed the 15th. And it's a 3-year deferred prosecution agreement. That means September of 2023, JP Morgan can go back in the market and start rigging again. But that's if they didn't do anything wrong for the 3 years. But they did. In December of 2021, had to pay $75 million for using these devices and colluding together. So they are in violation of the deferred prosecution agreement, although nobody said anything about it yet. Will they say something? They got JP Morgan by the short hairs. What I believe is happening is the good guys are telling JP Morgan, here's what you're going to do. You have no choice. If you violate what we tell you to do, we're going to bust you on RICO charges. RICO's is racketeering charges. Anyway, really interesting. And you might wonder what the CFTC is doing and how they make their decisions. They got a board. It's full of JP Morgan people and Citibank people. But who really makes the decisions at the CFTC? It's the side committees. So just released this morning, Commissioner Pham announces proposed work program for CFTC's Global Market Advisory Committee. Remember that. CFTC has a Global Markets Advisory Committee that it basically goes, oh, what do we do now? What do we do now? So who is on this Global Market Advisory Committee? Here, oh, look at the first one, Chris Allen from HSBC. Wait, isn't that the same HSBC that they charged a fine for breaking the law? $45 million and $30 million for bad record keeping? Isn't that the same? Why is HSBC on this committee to advise the CFTC? See how it all works? Citadel's on there, the DTCC, which we've covered a million times. Let's look for JP Morgan. They got to be here somewhere. BlackRock, there you go. Part of the global silver price riggers. Virtu Financial, Vinny Viola, there it is. JP Morgan Chase, there it is. It's so insane what is going on at the CFTC. They take advice from the same people that they keep finding and busting. Why aren't these people removed from the system? Why didn't JP Morgan get kicked out of trading commodities altogether? Because they have an advisory committee right here with JP Morgan's staff. They've got Greg Coleman over at the Office of Comptroller of Currency. They had Bill Daley as Barack Obama's chief of staff back in 2011 to rig the silver market. This has been going on so long. Now, I hate to do this. I loathe to do this. But one of the best historical analysis of what is going on in the silver market behind the curtain is from a guy that I have had 50 runarounds with. Everybody who does what I do and talks about silver has 50 runarounds with him because he's a complete ass. I can say that. But at the same time, probably the best silver researcher on the historical side out of anybody, and that is Charles Savoy over at silverstealers.net. I know I'm going to get an email from him saying, you called me an ass. Well, stop being an ass, and I won't call you an ass. I get calls like people try to get in touch with him because he says, oh, you're stealing my material. And so he said to me, you're stealing my material. And I said, well, you stole my material. He's like, what are you talking about? He goes, where'd you find out about the silver in the Manhattan Project? Probably the biggest conspiracy of all in silver, 3 billion ounces of silver. He's like, I found it out from from roadtoruta.com is where you found it out because it's an original find by myself. But anyway, the past is the past. Not for him, it never is. But go check it out, silverstealers.net. It's a massive, massive document with all the backup documentations on how silver has been rigged for a couple hundred years. I mean, he goes back and back and back. It's tons of stuff, but most of it is quotes from articles and publications in the past that talk about the same thing we're talking about today, silver manipulation. This has been going on for so long, and it is so important to the current monetary system. You cannot underestimate how important silver is. Gold, there's tons of gold. They literally, my estimate is 10,000 or 10 times the amount of gold they say. They say there's 200,000 tons that's ever been mined. I think that's the biggest joke ever, and that's bankers telling you that, oh, what we own is very scarce. No, it is not. It's scarce, but it's not as scarce as they say. it's at least 2 million ounces above ground. From my research on the Grand Canyon, but mainly Sterling and Peggy Seagrave spent their whole lives documenting Yamashita's gold, which is approximately, from my calculations, 300,000. And they don't know the total. They never say the total. But I went through all the documentation because they have it all in documentation. I mean, they spent their lives searching this. I think it's about 300,000 tons that was involved in Yamashita's gold. If you don't know what it is, go to Amazon and buy the book Gold Warriors by Sterling and Peggy Seagrave. And I have like 3 CDs of all the information, all the backup information that you need something. You can't just make a statement and not back it up with how you got there. And they go through congressional testimonies, Supreme Court testimony, all kinds of government documents, and they show you the documents and exactly it all fits. So there is a different world of financing gold and silver behind the scenes. Silver is all about, oh shit, what are we going to do? We're running out, and the world needs it for the manufacturing capabilities. And oh, by the way, the big mining companies and the big silver users, people who use a lot of silver, are in on the price suppression as well. So what does this all mean? Buy as much of the silver stuff as you can. And I think the COMEX will shut down when it breaks $50. I don't think the COMEX will be traded, which is a good thing, mind you. It's kind of like with cryptos. If Tether goes away, what's going to happen? Tether's a good thing that it would go away. It'd be a really good thing if Tether went away for various reasons. Deep state connections, crypto cabal, as I call them, other connections that I can't talk about on YouTube. But even a mention of Tether going away, what are people going to do? Crypto people aren't going to take their Tether and move it in. Although the vast majority of Tether, I think, is owned and controlled by the deep state. But they're not going to move it back into U.S. dollars. They're going to say, I got to get rid of Tether. What other crypto am I going to swap it for? So that should be a good thing, right? You would think. But yeah, the future of Tether that's kind of the final blow that Gary Gensler is going to play. And it might like briefly drop the price of cryptos, and then it's moonshot. So yeah, I'm in cryptos, but I'm not in it for the transition. I'm in cryptos for the future. And just so I'm in silver for the transition. Silver's going to save your ass during the transition. I don't know how long this transition is going to be. It could be a year. It could be 2 years. It could be 10 years before everything, starts to settle out. I think closer to a year or 2 years of chaos. But you're going to want whatever you own. You're going to want it in your own possession. All right. That's what I got for you. Again, you want to join the private Road to Ruta, get all this information behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Go to roadtoruta.com, click on subscribe today, and we will send you a Ruta Lives coin right to your front door. I do still think absolutely that the Ruta Lives coin, one, will be priced higher than the price of silver, the silver content, because it's a really great collectible coin, and we don't sell them to the public. We only give them away with subscriptions and renewals. And number 2, just the metal content is going to pay for the price of a 1-year subscription, which is $2.99. So go check it out. This is Bix. I'll talk to you later.